the money mindset I had to learn. So basically, my money mindset throughout my life. I basically grew up in a household where, I mean, money was there, but there was still a lot of like, there wasn't a lot of financial literacy growing up, like teaching you how to use money. I would say like money was held on a lot like this, pretty much. Um, and I find my mom was very tight. She wasn't that type of person where like if you were to ask her, maybe she'll give you money sometimes, but it wasn't like a typical thing. And basically, and I know I had shared this yesterday, that's pretty much what had led me to getting a job at 14 because like I wanted my own money and stuff like that and figuring it out. And plus, we didn't have the best relationship. So I think that played a part in there too. Um, and I basically, throughout my life in the past few years, I had to really learn to expand my mind when it came to finances because I knew I didn't want to continue living that way. I didn't want to continue always feeling like everything's tight. Like, who wants to live like that? It sucks. And I didn't want it to be continuously like that. Like, I always knew there was always a part of me that knew that there was something better, but I just didn't know how. But I always held on to that belief where I was like, okay, there has to be something better and beyond than where I am right now. There has to be a world where you're not always just like struggling all the time. Like, who wants to live like that? And I know there's people living like that. I've lived like that, but like it's just so draining and like it's so limiting, right? When you're always in this, um, I would say environment. You're just always in this world where you're always trying to figure out your income and you're always like, okay, how am I going to get, like, how am I going to pay the next bill or how am I going to get out of debt? Like, those times are hard, especially if you don't have a lot of solutions. So, right now, I'm just going to be talking about for people who join, um, like, how I had to learn my money mindset and the journey I had to go through. So, that's what I'm going to be touching on today. But yeah, like and it sucks, like especially if you're going to bed crying at night because you don't have enough money to pay for rent or bills or whatever it is. It definitely sucks. And the best part is like, especially if you know that you need something. The worst part is when you know you absolutely need something and you can't even get it, basically. And it's like you're trying to crunch numbers and it's so painful because you're like, I don't know how else to move around my funds in this budget to make it happen while trying to pay all my necessarily bills that I need to pay every month. Let me know if any of you guys have went through that, when it comes to budgeting and, funds are low and you're just trying to like seriously figure it out. I can't be the only one. So I have notes here. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about my journey, my journey and relationship with money. Um, so I grew up seeing a lot of things like money. I would say money was tight. We weren't like necessarily like in poverty. Like I feel like we're middle class, but I don't know. Like I felt like the money situation wasn't there. And so my journey was like basically, my mom looked at me and told me, "Hey, you need to get up now." And they're moving out. So basically, I was pretty much like abandoned. Had to figure it out. So thankfully, I had my church. But it was in those moments. I remember thinking, oh my God, like I'm really struggling, really working part time, going to school, and I'm still not financially there, which I don't expect anyone, going to school to be like making like the big bucks as when you're officially adulting. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Because if you know, like when you work retail, it goes up and down, especially when it hits January, it is slow. You're working like sometimes one day a week. It sucks. Like they reduce the hours to nilch. Um, and so I had a retail job, basically at H&M. And I remember I hated those retail days. Any of you guys worked in retail? Oh my God. I hated those retail days. The customers drove me nuts. I would say I didn't really like the people I worked with. There were some people, but I didn't really like the people I worked with. But now when I look back, I'm just like, it could have just been our age, and you're just immature. And but yeah, I didn't like the people we worked with. I remember like I'd always debate and all that stuff, and it was just so exhausting there. I cried many days working there. Um, and I feel like I spent there almost like 8, 9 years. And I don't know why I went through that, but I think it was just like that trauma where it's like you get used to something and you just stick to it because it's just comfortable. Um, and I remember there was many times I tried to get out. Like I worked jobs in between where I worked at like a debt collectors because like I tried to basically always keep that retail job constant, and then I was working other jobs alongside it to like really like boost the income. But all those jobs, it's just like I hate it. It was so draining, and it was like you're making so little money. And what's the worst thing that sucks is like you're making so little money, and then also it's like you're not excelling at the job. Like any of you guys have went through that where you have to work a job that you don't necessarily like, that you're not necessarily the best at, but you're like working a little. Let me know in the comments, like if you've been through that. Um, and what is this like? Oh my god. Yeah, let's keep this positive. And so let me know, yeah, if you've been through that. It is a sad job. The debt collectors, it is. It's not sad where you get depressed. It's not from that perspective. It's more so it's basically think of it like as hey everyone, think of it like a sales job. It's basically a sales job. So there were heavy hitters like in that debt collectors. Like, when you're on the other side of it, there's a lot of anxiety, because they're calling you. But the truth is they're just behind a cubicle, and they're basically sales reps. So there's people who are heavy hitters and they're making bank. But for me, it was just not it just wasn't my thing. Like you'll learn later that I did I did eventually get into sales, obviously if you do business. But that's a different world because you have to deal with people who like obviously don't want to pay their bills, or you have to deal with people where when you look at their credit like report, you're like, okay, dude, how are you not paying this? And you have like $1,000 payment, like, and you're spending like on a Mercedes. Like you can see everything. So you're dealing with the moral stuff, and then you're dealing with people running away from you. So I wouldn't say it's a sad job. It wasn't my thing. But there was people who were making like 5 figures per month there. But still, like most people lived on the base. Like the people who were big heavy hitters, like getting people to pay their bills, it was maybe far few in between. Like they basically would separate you up in teams, and um, they'll separate you up in teams, and then obviously, let's say there's 10 people in a team, there's maybe 1 or 2 people that were like top. So then they would always get the cream of their crop. Um, so sorry, 1 second here. Oh my god. So let's keep this focused. Um, So yeah, so going back to that, so I had the credit card debt. I mean, sorry, I worked at the credit card place as well, like the debt collectors. And then eventually I found the courage. I applied for a job, and then I ended up moving on to the dealership. Hey, Kasmina. And yeah, so just right now I'm just talking about my money journey, how I had to expand and unlearn a lot of things when it came to money mindset. So maybe I'll help you guys. Um, and so basically, I ended up applying, got a job at a dealership, ended up being full time. So that was my break to leave. And I remember, like, I don't know, like, even though, like, this retail job was toxic, it was like, I remember feeling so sad leaving there because I spent 8 years there. Like, I was so attached. Like, and it was one of, like, my first jobs, like, I really wanted to get into because I love teaching them all that stuff. Um, and so I finally got the job at the dealership. I moved there, so I ended up being like the service coordinator. So the people where when you do the oil change, you'll do the customer service, give them back their cars, let them pay for the service. And the job was okay for a while. Like at first, I was excited, and then that feeling came again where I was like, oh my god, this is not it. I don't know. It's like it's different ball game. Like when you're dealing with people's cars. Oh my god, they could get nasty. And like, if the service advisor doesn't communicate well and there's a discrepancy with the bill, then like hell break loose pretty much. So basically what ended up happening is that's when my journey started, where I was like, this can be it, and I need to start exploring. I haven't done this before. Like before that, I used to just accept where I was, right? I was just like, okay, this is all the money I could ever make. Like this is the best I can do back then. So this was like, like 10 years ago or something. Like, well, no, 12 years ago. Um, and I remember I started just researching, like, okay, how to make money on the side, like how to, like, should I do blogging? Like, should I hire a coach? Like, I started exploring those things, even though, okay, I didn't have much, I didn't have much money. Like, I've said this in other videos, but there was a time when I was working at a dealership. One of my friends, who was a finance manager, was offering me a car there from a couple because they were trading it in, and I basically couldn't wing it. And I remember that's when it got very depressing because I was like, oh my God, I can't even get a car. And I'm working 160 hours. Like, how am I working that much? Like, reality hits, right? When you're not making enough money, it can be such a downer, especially if you don't have help from people. You don't have the typical, like, parents. You're not like grown up privilege where they buy you a car or, those type of stories. I didn't have that. I was all alone. Like, I was trying to just survive. Like, I had many days where I would just cry going to work. Like, it was horrible. I would just cry going to work. It'd be raining, whatever. Like, it was just, anyways. And so basically, what ended up happening, I think I just had this gut feeling that something was going to happen. Like, I was going to be at that job forever, the dealership job. And then we ended up like doing this survey, like, good place to work. And then what do you know? They ended up laying me off. They actually laid off a bunch of people. And I remember I felt so defeated because I was like, here we go with this again. Because remember, I told you I almost went homeless before. And this was again, I was like, how am I going to pay my bills? Like, how am I going to do this? And then I remember going home and I spoke to a friend. And I started telling her, and I was so sad, like depressed. And she was just like, Nikia, this is your opportunity to spread your wings. And I think something clicked when she told me that. And that's why you have to have good people around you, because sometimes they can be the right person that is there in the right time to just tell you that thing that you need to hear to hit the game running. You need people like that around you. You need people, this is a side note, you need people around you who are doing really well so then they can give you little nuggets, like gold nuggets to keep you going. Like, you can't do this alone, all alone. Like, it's very hard to do it all alone. Now, I'm not saying you need to have best friends and all that, but like, you need to have at least like one good person that you could talk to sometime, that you can go to. So then they can give you that outside perspective. And that's what I got. As soon as I heard that, I remember like immediately I stopped feeling horrible about being laid off. And I remember the next day I started going to the library daily. And I would just read different books, like, like marketing in one day, like just reading books about business. And just, I started just exploring. Just in case you don't know, I'm just talking about my journey, my mindset journey, about the things that I need to unlearn when it came to money mindset. And hey, Lana. And so basically, what ended up happening is I saw someone post on Facebook, and they were like, hey, everyone, teaching people to do Amazon. So this is back then when like Amazon wasn't that, it's not that far away, but like it was like about 10 years ago when Amazon wasn't that popular yet. And so this was in drop shipping. And I did get a chunk of money when I got laid off. It was only a small like chunk, like four figures. And I remember I saw it and I kept on watching, and I started talking to people in the course and they were doing really well. And I remember I took the plunge because I told myself it's either I go back into a job where that I don't really like, okay, like I'm not a fan of, and a new job, and then go through that same cycle. I was tired of that cycle. Any of you guys in that cycle where you're in a job that you don't like right now, like it couldn't be only me, but are you in a job like that right now? Because it sucks. And so I was in that cycle, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna bet on myself. That's basically what happened. I was like, I'm gonna bet on myself. I'm gonna try something else. And so I ended up using my last savings, last dollars, and I paid this coach. Let me tell you, and I was scared. Okay, and that's one thing is that when it comes to money mindset and expanding your world, when it comes to money, um, yeah. But so you said here, I can't leave because I make good money. Oh, I don't like how you say I can't. We can remove that word. Oh, but do you love it though? I think if you love the job, it makes a difference, right? Because you're expanding your world. But if it's like sucking you dry, there has to be something better. You know what? I used to tell people this. Yeah, see? Um, I don't know if you heard this before, but I remember I'm gonna get into I'm jumping ahead, but I just want to share this is like a lot of the things that I hated in my job. So example, I hated working Saturdays. I'm just giving an example, right? And that was one a real example. But when I started that business at the time, do you know I ended up loving working Saturdays? And you know what's the difference is it makes such a big difference when you love the job. So I remember there was a time I was actually making less on my Amazon job than I did when I was working full time, but I was way happier. Um, you know what? I used to work at Sephora. That's crazy. I used to work at Sephora, but I was working in like the stock, like putting out the stock in like the products on the floor. But it was like overnight. So I worked overnight. It was a good place. You know what? I would say Sephora was better than H&M. It was less toxic. It was less toxic. See, I'm ahead of you, girl. You're like, what is it like? I'm ahead of you. It was good. I would say it was less toxic. But it's still retail. Like, I just believe I think retail will always be retail. You still have to deal with customers, but I think what made my job good is I didn't have to deal with people. I just had to deal with I just had to deal with putting out the stock on the floor, and it was overnight. But I did have make a lot of friends there. A lot of people seem to really like it. You know what I liked about it? You get free products. That was the one thing that was such a great perk. And we all know how much Sephora products are. It's expensive, right? So you'd always get all the like the latest products. So you definitely get a stack. So I think you would like it. If you're going for that, and um, sometimes retail like asking people if you need help. Exactly. Like people can be rude. Um, but I think it can be overwhelming too, right? Because it gets very busy and people can be needy. But I think it's one of the better retail places. Um, I just remember I think it was so much. So okay, girl, let me tell you. So what I think turned me off for that company is that when they're giving raises, I remember them giving like 25 cents, and I was like, that is so offensive. I remember thinking like, that's so offensive. Like, I'd rather you just not give me a raise at this point. What do you do at the gym? I'm curious. Are you one of the salespeople? Um, like saying, "Do you know who I am?" I don't need your help. Like it is so annoying. Yeah, yeah, I know they act above you. But I feel like Sephora is one of the better places than if you work in a clothing store. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I don't remember having the worst experience. Like they do have a lot of great processes, um, and all that stuff. So I would say it's one of the better places. Like when I think about my history of work, the one that I hated most was H&M. But Sephora, I would be like, okay, other than the pay raise that was offensive, they are honestly legit. Like, um, I think it's a good company, but like, and you can work there full time, but I feel like it's a better experience if you work there part time. Um, I know, but if you enjoy, okay, so I was getting into it, but if you enjoy the job, here's the thing: if you enjoy your job, it becomes fun. But it's like the key thing is like you have to figure out what you enjoy doing. I know, a lot of people believe like they have to stay in a job because hey, it pays the bills. But I believe jobs are opportunities to branch out into things that you really want to do. Um, yeah, and let me know what you do in the gym, like if it's a sales job or something like that. Um, cause like okay, so going back to that story, so when I did the Amazon, so I did the coaching, and I remember I did it. I started listing products following the course, and then I made my first sale. It was only like $10 profit. But I remember I was in my SpongeBob PJ SquarePants pajamas, and I saw the ding on my phone. It was $10. I jumped so high. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is like going to be a new journey. Um, and I remember thinking this was, oh my God, this is going to be my new journey. It's opening up. And I really, one of the things I learned just from that moment is, sometimes like your closed doors are, it gives room for things that you probably wouldn't have tried otherwise. Like if I didn't get laid off in that job, I probably would have never tried Amazon. Like I was a scaredy cat. Like I would almost say like I was a little bit of pussy. I was a pussy cat. Like I was scared. Like I was one of those people that I was very low risk tolerant because I only knew what to do. Like I was like you. Like I was like, well, I hate the job, but I need to pay bills. But I really encourage you, just from my experiences I'm about to share. It's just like keep your mind open, keep your options open. Like if you're like, oh, I've been thinking about working at Sephora, maybe apply for a part-time job. Because that was one thing is they're very flexible with that. So I work at a gym where I train people and they don't even show up. Oh my gosh. But don't you still don't you still get paid, right? If they don't show up. Um so you're basically like in I understand. You can make really good money with that. And now I know understand why you're saying that. Um because if you build your clientele, like it's basically sales. I believe more people need to go in sales. I know, especially women like to run away from sales, but it's so lucrative. Like it's so lucrative. Only $5 less if they don't show up. Well, at least you still get paid, but I understand because you want to perform the duties that you're working on. Like you want to help people. Like you want to see the transformation. Um, So yeah, so we'll go back to the story. And that was when I got that first $10, it was my permission to hit the game running. And so I think in the first 3 months I did like I think it was like $6,000 in sales. And then in the first year I ended up doing like 275K, and then like beyond I started like building a whole team and all that stuff. But this is what I wanted to really share is that during those moments it made me realize like okay, so it's possible. So I'm not saying like Amazon was this dream business, but I think when I started that business, it was the first time I didn't feel like an outsider, and it allowed me to just spread my wings. It allowed me to open up as a beautiful flower that I was that I didn't notice before. I feel like when I was in these jobs, it kept me as like a bud. Like before a flower grows, you're just stuck as like you see the little bud when it's growing. Like that's what it felt like. I didn't get an opportunity to expand, and I think a lot of it too was that I was always stressed. Let me see this. I'm quitting my job soon. I put in a notice 1 week ago. Oh, so you actually did apply. Exciting. Is it full time or part time? And are you one of the makeup artists? Like, or are you just like helping on the floor? What are you doing? Because I know they're different. Oh, exciting. Let me know how it is. Come back. I'm here every day on the lives. Come back and let me know how it is in 2 weeks. Well, hopefully come before then. But I'm curious to know how you're gonna do well. You're gonna do well. You'll like it. Like, I had a friend that she was in it and they love doing makeup, but it's not the only thing, right? But I think you'll enjoy it. It's just I think a lot of it is learning to be nonchalant. Like you have to learn not to take things personal. Um, that's the biggest thing. But I mean that's very exciting. Congrats. You made that shift and you'll see if you like it. And I think that's a part of trying something new is you're seeing like, okay, do I really like this? Okay. And okay, so yeah, going back to the Amazon business. So it really expanded my mind about finances because I grew up always hearing like my mom say like, oh, like I'm sure you've heard it like money doesn't grow on trees, all this stuff and money, just like seeing like money wasn't something that I thought as expansion. And honestly, the Amazon business helped me pay off my debts. Like it helped me be in complete abundance. Like it changed my mindset of how I saw money. And I realized like money was a ticket. I know they say it's not happiness, but it was a ticket to like really explore life and enjoy it more. Now, there was still a lot of fears. Yeah. And there was still a lot of fears around like, even though I had my business, like I wanted to solo travel, and I have to admit I didn't do much of it because eventually I got obsessed with making so much money. Because it's like when you come from that survival mindset, it's like all you want to do is make sure that you're good. Like it can almost become toxic. Um, because you're like, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to ever go back to a job again. Ew. Right. But what I realized and learned is that you have to just be in your strengths. Like if you're working in your strengths, the job doesn't feel so horrible. Like I don't think it's about, oh, like having a business or having a job is better. I think it's about you being happy. Obviously money helps, but if you're happy in a job, it makes a big difference. And you said here, if I'm good, they said that I'll get a raise in a month or two. That sounds about right because you'll be on probation, right? For like 3 months or something. Um, and yeah, so basically from there, it just kind of showed me like what was possible. And I started like training people like to have their own stores, all the good stuff. So like it's like once you get into that world, it's like you start to see the world different, and your ceiling, your financial ceiling, it's like gets broken. Um, I believe mindset like definitely plays a big part in your career. Because even now, like going, and I'm actually gonna do this topic on a TikTok live, but a little snippet, like even now, going from having a business, it's a long story, like different businesses, right? And then like going back to a job because I was like, I felt like I need to do that. It sounds weird to people, but I actually had to go back. I went back to a job because I was like, I wasn't happy in the business that I was doing. I liked the processes, but I felt like I wanted to do more of this. Like I wanted to connect with more women. I wanted to go deeper in that sense. But my mindset's different now. Like I don't feel as depressed as I did like 10 years ago. I'm a different person. And it's like you learn so much about yourself and business that I feel like I've taken a lot of those stuff and brought it with me in my job. And now it's like I know how to handle it because now I know, oh, I already know my purpose. Like as I'm working on my job, I'm working on like my business, like in a way that I love doing it. I think I spent too much time building it in a way that building in a way that my like coaches were telling me. And now I'm more in a journey where I'm like, I want to build it the way that Nikhil wants to build it. Um, Another thing too is you learn to be very resourceful. Um, and I would even encourage you. You put a question mark there. I'm not sure what the question mark is, but I will even encourage you that even as you have the Sephora business, see if you like it, but continue to be resourceful. Like don't if you can, like don't depend on one income stream. Like always have another income stream going because you'll feel more secure and you won't feel that stuck feeling. You know that feeling. Oh, you're so sweet, Lana. But you know that feeling, Lana, um, where you're probably having that gym where you're like, oh, I hate it, but it pays good money. And like, obviously, you can't leave, which is understandable, right? But if you work on something else, like on top of that Sephora, where even if people think you have to work like this a insane amount of hours, but even if you dedicated 30 minutes or an hour per day, so before or after work, and even if you're like, I don't have an idea, right? Do you even have an idea? Do you have something that you're like, what would be the absolute thing that you'd want to do? Like, what's the, like, something where don't even worry about money. What would be the absolute thing you would love doing? Like, how about we start there? But even if you work on, like, let's say you had no idea, right? You would you would start looking at videos or like, example, like about traveling, right? So you'll just watch other people doing what you want to do. And it will inspire you. I actually used to do this when it came to solo traveling. Remember I told you how I feared it? So I would watch videos and then I would get all pumped up and I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. Like, and then you get to live in their world. So like you're kind of showing your mind like, okay, yes, you may have that fear or you may not know, right? Yet. But it like expands your mind because you see other people doing it. Um, yeah, probably. Yeah, but no pressure. But the reason why I say this is that way when you're in that situation, oh, I like that. Like when you're in that situation, you don't feel stuck in a job. Like there's a confidence going into a job because you now know, hey, in that business, I'm making my own money. Like in that biz, I'm making my own money. So if anything were to happen with Sephora and I don't end up don't liking it, you could just be like, okay, I'm making money. So like I don't have to stay with your crap. Like especially those days, you know how there's a lot of politics. I'm not saying Sephora specifically, but there could be a lot of politics in jobs. Like you have this confidence. That's why a lot of jobs don't like you having an extra income because they know like you get very confident. But I believe it's like everyone should. Um, but yeah, make my own business called Makeup by Inspiration. I'm curious to know what's stopping you. Why not do it? Because I feel like that's a business. Not necessarily. Why would you lose money? I feel like if you're bootstrapped, so with the Amazon business, I never actually lost money because I always just made sure that I was always making a profit. So even if I sold something as low as $10, right, and I was only selling one or two items, right, it was $20, for example. It still wasn't a loss. I would say maybe it's less money in the beginning, but it wasn't necessarily a loss, because as you build and you take the data that you're, yeah, as you build and you take the data that you are, what's that word? Sorry, I'm losing. I'm reading your comments and thinking. Sorry. So as you like, let's okay. Every time you make a sale, it's analytics, it's data. I hope that makes sense. So every time you make a sale, it's data. So you're not losing money because you're actually it gives you an opportunity to use that data to scale. So when I got my first product, I started to then pay attention to ranking. Like we can get into this, but you start paying attention to data, so then you could double down, so you can find more similar items like it. So I feel like, and if you did your makeup business, so is this like you putting makeup on people or products? But let's say if it was a service and you're doing makeup for people, right? Like I don't see it as a loss because maybe you're not making enough. Maybe that's what you meant. Like you're not making enough. But you have to start somewhere. You have to start small somehow. Right? So like and you keep in mind, I think it's a good thing to start small because your mindset has to match because if your mindset's not matching, like like sometimes it can go too fast and then you get overwhelmed and then you shut down the whole thing. So sometimes it's good to build small and then let your mind catch up, especially if you come from a background where there wasn't a lot of financial literacy. Sometimes it's good to grow small. I like Rare Beauty. Now I used to use their highlighter. It's because I think I finished it and then I didn't buy it again. But I really like Rare Beauty. I like Sol. You know what? I do like Sol de Janeiro. I actually have the lotion. I'm a big fan of the scents. How about you? But yeah, if you start small and you just get one person to put the makeup on, right? And it's $100. I'm just giving you an example. And then you do one, you get pictures from that. Like you have to think of all the benefits. You get pictures from that. You get one person who's your ideal client that you could run with, right? That's huge that you could run with. And then you also get um yeah, so I said you get the data, you get the client, and then you are able to talk to a real person that's real that was into you, that was attracted to what you have. And then you can expand from there and use that as your case study to get more clients and then it starts to build, right? And then maybe there's word of mouth and then like you build from there. Um, but is this for a product? if I do make a business, I think $20 for natural. For something big at 120. Is that for a product or actually putting makeup on people? Very curious. Okay. But I think $20 is too low for natural. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get that. I think that's too low though. $20 for a natural girl. No, I think like $100 or even $75. But anyways, the point is that so you have those dreams, and I encourage people to start. Like, don't be scared of risk. 75, like minimum set. Cause you said I think $20 for natural for something big 120, like 75, not 20. Like minimum at least. It could be more, but I understand that you have to work. See, it goes back to money mindset. You do have to work your way up. Like you have to work your way up to getting comfortable with pricing. So when it comes to pricing, unless we were on like a coaching call together, right? I don't like to just like I will give you my suggestion, but the thing is you have to be comfortable with the price. So if $20 is what you're comfortable with, that's fine because it gets very hard if you're selling a price that you're not comfortable with. Right? It would get restricted because people can see when you're not confident. Like you have to be confident when you're selling something to someone. Um, so that's why when it comes to pricing, I like to tell people like you want to make sure that you're getting paid, you're not losing money. Like I can see now where you're saying, oh, you're losing. If you feel like you're losing money, then you need to. The answer to that question is you need to increase it to the point where you don't feel like you're losing money. So then it feels good to you. Now there's nothing wrong with building your portfolio and then doing it for $20 as a trial, right? So build a portfolio, get people interested, but you definitely can't stay at that price. So I understand what you're saying now. Like, yeah, like you're losing money, but you're not doing it forever. You're probably you would make a goal, you'd have some type of boundary and say, okay, after three people or five people, whatever that number is, until you're comfortable to charge more, that will be it, and then you increase your prices. Like you're not staying there. Definitely not stay there. And another thing too is you want to charge. So like and okay, so let me. I have notes here. So you want to make sure that you're not. Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure that you're not in that like survival mode mindset, because it kind of crunches down your vision. So you want to be in a mindset where you're like you're not in survival mode. You're like, okay, I'm in abundance. I'm believing what I'm doing, and it's okay if you don't know the how. But then what matters is you. I think that's what has helped me to make more money is I started believing in what I'm doing. Like that was the basics of the basics. Is I was like, I'm gonna believe in what I'm doing, and then and expand. And so yeah, if you're starting at $80, you just have to believe it. And then you start to the next thing I had in my notes was exposure. So you start to put yourself out there and do it scared. Don't wait till you're ready. Like so when you start the Sephora, your job, because you're gonna probably be doing face. People are gonna be probably booking appointments with you, right? That would probably give you confidence in yourself. So it's probably a good thing that you're doing that. And then you go from there. But I guess these were some of the things that I learned when it came to mindset. I'm sure there's a lot of tips. We can keep on going. But I just wanted to share that. And I just remind you in my description, I have my 7-day reset, self connection, reset journal. And I think it's perfect for people to just reconnect and just hear yourself think. Like, do things that you enjoy that we're talking about, right? So if it's like, if you hate your job, like I believe the reset helps because it reminds me to do other things outside of that. Like don't just only do your job that you hate and not enjoy your life outside of that. Because it can be draining. But I thank you so much for listening, Lana, and everyone else is watching this live. And so feel free to check out the description and I'll be here tomorrow. Please leave anything in the comments if you have any thoughts.